Loxton Attorneys CEO David Loxton joins us now to discuss the legal questions, some of the legal questions posed by the former president's lawyers. David, good evening. Thanks very much for your time. You saw the president's legal team objecting to the line of questioning, claiming it falls outside of the terms of reference and that he was being ambushed into cross-examination about issues he did not prepare to deal with, and that was unfair. Did they have a point?
Yes, look, I think it's, to my mind, it's not that valid, because at the end of the day, when we look at the terms of reference, as his team correctly points out, what the Commission is doing is trying to establish the facts. It is also giving the former president a chance to face down his accusers, because you will recall that many people, I think it's more than 15, have implicated him in pretty serious allegations. So this is his chance to face them down. It's his chance to give his version. And the Commission ultimately simply wants to establish the facts to then make a recommendation. Now, from that, if one takes that into account, I don't really think that one can object to the Commission's legal team putting questions to the president, to the former president, to try and clarify and get his version.
Well, Tawani Masuku, the president's lawyer, once again reiterating his client's previously stated view that the former president still doesn't believe the former GCIS, CEO Themba Maseko, or anybody for that matter, implicated him.
Yes. Well, if one, again, goes back to the terms of reference and the regulations of the Commission, each time a witness is going to, or is thought that they're going to implicate another individual, that individual is then notified by the Commission. And as I understand it, the former president has been notified some 15 times, if not more. So certainly the Commission took a view that he was going to be implicated, and certainly the way I read the testimony of many of the individuals that have testified, they certainly have implicated him fairly and squarely.
Well, to quote Masuku, Mr. Zuma has read the affidavit. This is Themba Maseko's affidavit. We have read it. We took the view that it doesn't implicate the president in any of the terms of reference that this commission is about. Now, dismissing the allegations is, of course, one thing, but saying you are not implicated is something else, isn't it?
Yes, and I must say, I beg to differ, because the way and I must say up front, I've obviously not attended the Commission, or the Commission of Inquiry, but I've certainly been following the proceedings very, very closely in the media. And assuming that the media has been reporting pretty correctly and close to what has been testified, as I understand it, the former president has been implicated not by one person, but by many. And to then just glibly state the former president is of the view that he has not been implicated, to my mind, with all due respect, is too clever by half. He's simply not prepared to confront it and put his version.
Well, in fact, this is what so many people have been offering running commentary.
Yes.
In all of this, and I saw some people on social media networks where they say, the former president's legal team kind of had to run to his defense precisely because they could see that the evidence leader was sort of beginning to get to the nub of the issues and was getting ready to basically corner him.
Yes. As you say, there have been many commentaries, but I think an important point is, if one takes the view, as the former president's legal team has taken, that he's not implicated, that then means that there's no need to cross-examine. And as you are probably aware, when you cross-examine, you're obliged to put your version. So it's a very neat way of getting around the obligation to put the former president's version. Because you say, we're not implicated, therefore there's no need to cross-examine, therefore there's no need to put our version. Simple as that.
I want to get your view on what the chairperson of the commission, Deputy Chief Justice Zondo, had to say at that point. Let's just take a listen. Okay.
When you deal with a case in litigation in court, it's easy to say, when you are for one side, the other side must make out its case. because that's litigation. Where it's an inquiry, a person may come and say, this is what I know. I'm placing before the commission what I know and what happened. And the commission must inquire whether that may have anything to do with any impropriety. So while on the one hand there must be fairness, there can be no doubt about that, but one also needs to understand that unlike in litigation where one is able to say, well, that party must make its case clear in the pleadings and in the affidavits, in an inquiry you have a situation where people say, I'm only here to say what I know. What you make of that in terms of your inquiry, whether you think it's relevant or irrelevant, but this is what I am here to say.
Your thoughts on what the judge had to say?
Yes, look, with all due respect, he's obviously he's stating the obvious, but what he hasn't dealt with is the proposition I put earlier, where the Commission, in terms of its own regulations, has provided for an individual such as a former president who may be implicated by witnesses to allow them a chance to, first of all, listen to that evidence, to see that evidence in the form of statements, and to cross-examine should they so wish. And so it goes a little bit further than that particular comment, because, as I said earlier, the former president has been implicated by a number of people, and if his team takes a stance that, look, we are simply here to give our version, but we're not going to accept that we were implicated by those 15 or 16 people, therefore there's no need to cross-examine, it takes it actually further than what the Deputy Judge President said.
Which takes us back then to what the former president's lawyers said right at the beginning yesterday, that they had requested documents, they had requested information, but weren't given. Everyone thought they were digging in their heels, and the former president was being himself, the person who had come to know him, to be, yet they insisted yesterday they were trying to avoid situations like they found themselves in today.
Yes, as I understand it, he was provided with statements. It's the questions he was not provided with. His team asked the Commission to provide them with a list of questions that he was going to face. So it was very much a case of, we'll come to the Commission, but tell us up front what you're going to ask us. Then we can prepare properly. And the Commission took a view, no, we're not going to provide you those questions. You come along and tell us what you know. And again, with all due respect to his legal team, I think that's the right decision, because in no proceedings is a witness or an individual testifying entitled to know the questions up front.
And the findings of the Commission, of course, do have criminal implications, don't they?
Well, they don't, in the sense that the findings simply can be given as recommendations, and also the regulations provide that whatever the individuals are stated in the Commission cannot be used in criminal proceedings. So I think that's an important point, that the Commission itself provides that whatever people state here cannot be used in criminal proceedings against them.
Okay. That's where we're going to leave it, David. Thanks very much for your time and insights this evening. David Loxton, who is from Loxton Attorneys.